So we're going to get things started. I'll turn it over to Mark.
Good evening. Hi, welcome to 360i. We are a digitally centric integrated agency powered by Curiosity. We've got some great clients. We do a lot of great storytelling in a lot of different media, mostly in social media, digital stuff. We do some TV, we do some print, definitely digitally centric. We love this organization. StoryCode is amazing. And the fact that this is the second time we've been here, it's fantastic to have different kinds of thinking in here. We do a lot of transmedia production without calling it that. We love to have more of your thinking involved in our work. We have 60 open positions right now online. If you go to 360i.com, there may be something there that would appeal to you and that makes sense to you. We encourage you to look at that. But also, keep doing this stuff. This is fantastic. And I don't really have much of an enjoy that. So I'm done. Here you are. Awesome.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Ina.
I'm Mike.
And we're StoryCode, New York City. For those of you who are new, StoryCode is a global organization. It is right now in 12 cities, 4 continents. And the concept behind it is really simple. It's an organization for makers, by makers. It's designed to encourage and support people who are making narrative work using technology in interesting ways. So that encompasses everything from stuff that lives on the web to stuff that lives in real life to theatrical performances that involve technology, and the breadth is very broad. So welcome. We are today fighting the best weather we've had in weeks. So I applaud those of you who resisted the 75-degree temperature to come in here, so thank you. Usually we have a really full house, but today we're excited to have those of you who are here for the super awesome presentations we have planned. We also will have the videos archived, so they will also be seen by people streaming and beyond this event.
And if you haven't got the Wi-Fi permission, this slide will be going down soon. So if you need it, there it is.
So if you do tweet, please use the hashtag StoryCode. So that's just one word, no spaces, no dashes. And we'll tweet out the names of the presenters if you want to tweet about them while it's happening. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out to our organizer from StoryCode Barcelona who's here today. So we have our people traveling through from different cities. If you're ever in another city and you're looking for a StoryCode event or like-minded folks, we can always help you out there. So our first presenter is Cortés, and he's a multidisciplinary artist. His work spans screenwriting, film directing, design, and photography. He was director and writer of MANIFESTO, which he'll be presenting today. And that's a culture and fashion transmedia branded entertainment TV show produced by TurnerTV. He's also producing a TV series about the life of legendary boxing world champion Antonio Cervantes. Andres is also the co-founder and creative director of the Box Collective, one of the 25 multicultural agencies in the US in 2012. And after 10 years in business, he sold his stake and now you're independent, right? Yeah, he's independent. So he did a really interesting job with this project. It's a very rare kind of project to have a transmedia, an entire transmedia end-to-end project produced by a network. And so we thought that was pretty spectacular. And from those of us who create all the time, very curious about a look into this process. So we're going to hear from you first, and then we'll hand it over to the next presenter. So welcome, Andres.
Thank you. Okay. Can you hear me? Good. Just curious, out of all these audience, who works in advertising and in the entertainment business? So we're kind of 50-50 people. So if I'm giving too much jargon on advertising, don't get bored. If I'm giving too much jargon on entertainment, bear with me. So, as I was saying, my name is Edwin Cortés. I'm a designer, filmmaker, and writer. And this is a project that I created, actually, it was on air last year in all through Latin America. It's called MANIFESTO. And it was an interesting project because it's a TV show, but it's also an online strategy. It's also it's online content, it's print content, it's a lot of things all mixed together. So that said, again, we call that 360 Lifestyle Media Platform. And before I get into the details of the project, I'm going to share with you guys the trailer, and I'll jump right back in as soon as I finish the trailer.
Several cities on the cutting edge of global cool. We are on the hunt for trends and emerging talents in the world of fashion, art, design, music, cinema, nightlife, and architecture. I am Edwin Schlossberg, and I invite you to come along and take part in our search. Everything starts with a simple concept, and then voila, for the rest of the world to admire. How do you see the future of the music industry? What question? is on. Manifesto keeps rocking.
So that was the trailer. So basically, this is a project that we shot in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, and Colombia over a period of 2 months. And what I want to give you guys today is a behind-the-scenes look to the creative process, the insanity, and the madness of creating a brand entertainment multi-screen TV show. And I think those words are important because for the ones that work in advertising and also in production, we know that it's complicated to create such projects. So, just a disclaimer, there are two sides of every story. Yours, mine, and the truth, like the famous producer Robert Evans would say. And this is a story about intersections. And why intersections? I feel and I believe that we're in the intersection of entertainment and advertising. And this is a project that lives in that intersection. Me as a creator or as a director, I also live in that intersection. I was saying, I was 15 years in advertising, and prior to that, I was developing a few entertainment projects, but I always was in that middle and intersection. Nowadays, I'm more here because I'm writing a scripted TV series. But for this project, I think it's really cool because it really lives in the middle of advertising and entertainment. And also lives in the middle of, or in the intersection of TV and digital. And we know that, I guess for us, we're here, we're in an event called StoryCode and an agency called 360i. We live in the digital universe. It's not, I understand, I get it. We live here. But our audience, I feel that lives in the middle, and still living in the middle, and it might be moving more towards that side. But to start this type of project, I feel that also needs to live in that intersection of those two universes. And if you look at all those universes, I think we live in a multi-screen world where brands need to communicate to their audience in a smarter, better, and nicer way. This is very simple, better content, talks better to the audience, and we know those things. And I really like this quote from my fellow Colombian, Garcia Marquez, in his book, 1 Years of Solitude. And he said in one of the passages of the book, the world was so recent that many things, like names and orders, to indicate them, it was necessary to point at them. So that is a very interesting concept because we always call these things kind of transmedia or whatever, interwebs, television, brand entertainment, hashtag.com.tv. Anyhow, there's so many names to look for these things. I call this project a multi-screen brand entertainment project because I believe that transmedia goes a little bit beyond in terms of storytelling, but all this jargon is important just to name a few things. So going back to the main topic, and now I kind of give names to the creative process, which is the concept phase, the insanity, which is the production, and the madness, which is post-production. For the ones that work in entertainment, I guess they can relate to, I don't know, what's your favorite one? I guess I'm sick and I like them all, but that's just me. So this is the concept of the creative process. So, true story, this is how the project started. It started with this logline. This is kind of the first thing when we got the idea of the project. We wrote this logline like very quick. It usually takes me more time to write, but this one was kind of easy. It's MANIFESTO is a 360 live social media platform discovering the latest trends in fashion, music, art, design, film, and nightlife through Latin America and the world. So that document was kind of our starting point. But I emphasize in 360. Why I emphasize into that? Because from the get-go, this project was conceived as a multi-screen project. This is not a TV show that has an afterthought, oh, we need to put some websites tonight. No, this is something that from the get-go, we needed to be more in a multi-screen environment. And why needs to be in a multi-screen environment? Let me go a little bit to the advertising universe. In advertising terms, we're talking about sophisticated audience that barely watches TV or television set, and we all know that. And also an audience that uses the web and mobile devices for information, procrastination, that's me there, and sometimes entertainment. So if we're creating a TV show for this audience, we definitely need to go into a multi-screen universe. So going back to my login, as I was talking a little bit to right, but if you see, you can see great letters here, it's really nice on my screen. It looks a little bit washed out for this time. 360 media platform. So, our brief was simple. In advertising words, again, brief. To create a TV show that connects to its audience, creating a constant dialogue between content and brands. With the caveat, as I was saying, to connect with our desired audience, this show needs to live in a multi-screen environment. So, our strategy was very simple, common sense, again, TV, but as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a story of intersections. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, we all know that stuff, but on the branding, but that was kind of our starting point. So, our core of our show was fashion. And as you said, you guys saw the trailer, there's a lot of exploration in fashion and design and culture, etc. So fashion is the core of our show. Even though we're talking about music, arts, lifestyle, but how fashion influences music or art, lifestyle, etc. And we know that music is being influenced by fashion and vice versa. That's the story of the world as we know it, same thing, arts and lifestyle, but our core or like starting point is fashion. So now we'll go back to brand entertainment. And this is the interesting part of this project. And it's not just a multi-screen project because, yeah, we need many screens, we're talking about a specific target audience, millennials, whatever. But this is a brand entertainment project. Part of the budget of this project was paid by a company, which is the network that sponsors it. So we applied 5 rules. Or what I call the ultimate application of common sense. So when we're doing brand entertainment, and again, I'm sure this is very simple for everybody, but this is in the context of our TV show. I feel that the first one is treat your audience with respect. I always put myself as an audience member, and I don't like to things with like product or advertising doesn't treat me with respect. So I think it's very important that we treat the audience with respect. And like in Fight Club, the second rule is the same as the first one, which I think is very important. Number 3, be relevant, the right product to the right audience. In this case, I'm going to show you what product it makes sense for this audience. And then integrate from the story level. Again, not as an afterthought, integrate from the screen. Because we know that it's important in this type of situation. And it also create something that is seamless. That is very important. And number 5, create a dialogue across media. So, in a nutshell, create a seamless dialogue between brands, the content, and the audience. So, our partner for this project is BlackBerry. And what we did with BlackBerry is we catered some of the set parts of the show to their pan-regional campaign at that moment. And in 2013, they were launching a campaign called BlackBerry Insiders. It was all about discovering new clubs, new trends, and using Twitter and all these things to tell those stories. So our show is kind of perfect to partner with them. So this is kind of some of the BlackBerry things. And this is the perfect way we talk about her host. You saw her in the trailer. She's amazing. Her name is Edwin Schlossberg. And at the moment we did the show, she's a very well-known person in America, but not to the level of like a J-Lo or something, where she's someone in that area right now, so somebody reachable away. Nowadays she's the host of Project Purver in America. So she was, what's very important about her, she has fashion credentials. Remember, when I was telling you the core of her project was fashion. So she's not only someone in the background as a presenter, but also someone, she's also a showroom recipient, and she was in the runways of Berlin, London, New York, interviewing at the red carpet, also doing special interviews with all sorts of celebrities. So she has experience. So this is the first step of our strategy in terms of how we started the project. So we needed to integrate the client, in this case BlackBerry, with our host. So the first thing we did, very ironically, is not very normal for this type of project. We did a TV commercial, a 30-second one. And remember those that our grandparents used to produce, so we did a 30-second commercial. So this commercial, it is something very simple. In a way, we're having a thing and setting, and she's this is a Portuguese version, she's talking to one of the insiders. But pay attention that we're not giving away the name of the show yet. This is a BlackBerry commercial. We are not saying MANIFESTO, we're not saying anything. We're saying this is the new person that we're going to be chatting. It's talking to the insider.
Nunca. ¿Por qué usted está esperando juntarse a él?
It was our first step of our campaign. So then, parallel to that, we built in the multi-screen structure of the show. And what was the structure of the show in terms of multi-screen? So we created the first season of the show, which is 12 episodes. We created the digital campaign, which is 72 episodes or something like that. The mobile aspect, obviously. The social part, which is a zillion of branded and non-branded tweets and posts. And the print, which I'm going to talk a little bit later about that part. Something that we created for the show is sections within the show, so we can integrate with our client and also with also different clients. So in this case, we have dress codes, tags, indie love, you're going to see more of that. But here the music part, music hunting, inspiration. So this part was more connected to the restaurants, hotels, the whole part of art, the street art, and also art in museums. And as any brand, we started with the creation of the brand. So that's where we put our graphic design hats, and we started to create the concept of the brand. So for us, it was very important that Manifesto was kind of a seal of approval, like that it was inspired by the register sign. So and we were something that occurred organically. In all of the emails we were sending, we always were sending this symbol that end with the exclamation mark. So that, in a way, it became the first idea of the brand. This is kind of the idea, the concept. Here is the Finnish brand. For the ones who like typography, this is a mix between a custom type between Neutra and Futura, which are both very timeless and pretty fonts. And the whole idea of this brand is to create something that didn't interfere with the content. You know what I mean? A neutral in a way brand, but also it can be a state of approval in a way. So this is the sections that we created for the show. Between each story, that was kind of the opening and the closing. We thought that because we have so much information, so much content, so much stuff, we wanted to use this kind of very minimalistic kind of openings and closing, which I think is pretty nice. So this is the opening of the show that we already saw. And now we can move to the production, or what I call the insanity, which because production this size is really crazy. And when we get to production, I always said, change is good, but change is God. Change is always going to happen in production. You have your idea of shot, it's everything you want to do, create, produce, and you get to the first day and you don't have that piece of equipment, that person was late, X, Y, Z. So change, you need to adapt. So going back, if you guys remember our logline, the first thing we changed was this, at the core of the show. So we changed the logline to Manifesto is a 360 lifestyle media platform juxtaposing the most iconic artists working today with the latest trends in fashion, music, blah, blah, blah. So this was a very important change. Why? Because we could mix, again, this is a story of intersections, the new with the timeless. Usually the timeless established designers, established artists, and for example, if you're doing a story on a famous musician, they posted it on their website, with their Twitters, whatever, so we track all this audience. So the new and the timeless. And with that, we started to create a catalog. We wrote a new manifesto, which we're not going to read right now, but then we created a multinational, in a way, production team. So the production, we have people from the ESI, the nationalities of the members of our team. So we have from Argentina, from Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, same thing on the content side. So it was a very, and everybody located in different cities working at the same time. Then we wrote many scripts, even though it doesn't look like everything is written, everything doesn't script in this type of show. And then we started the tour, the crazy tour. That was our plan. No, I'm kidding, that was not, that's a thing. But it felt like it sometimes. What's happening while carrying really voice. So when it felt like sometimes it was 2 months of production. This was our tour. We started in Buenos Aires, then we went to Sao Paulo, then Bogotá, Mexico, and back to Buenos Aires. It was fun. And then we said action, we started the whole process. And here are some of our guests. And just to tell you a little bit about this guy, Tia is a singer-songwriter, former model, fashion designer, a very important Japanese artist who was doing a show in Mexico City. And a bigger back, she's a filmmaker. She has a film with Viggo Mortensen. Actually, I think it's his second Spanish language film. Really cool film, actually. And again, the core of our show, we're fashion designers. This is very important for us. But this is also interesting about, remember all the dialogue, the changes in terms of concept. So here we interview Pablo Ramirez, who's an Argentinian fashion designer. He's timeless. Everything that he does is black and white, it's pure, it's pristine. He is the establishment. But we also interview Santiago Artemis, who's a kid who's 21 years old. He hasn't finished fashion school, actually he's in his last year. And his stuff is already the runways of London and France, and he actually dressed Katy Perry for some of her shows. So it's cool to have this kind of dichotomy, a dialogue between the establishment, like Pablo Ramirez, and like this kid who's like becoming a rock star, and always going in different countries, Argentina, etc. Some of the other artists, anyhow. Something that we did, which was actually a challenge for this project, we wanted to create a production with a cinematic. That is very common on the digital universe. Everything video looks pretty, we'll have DSLRs, lenses, depth of field, everything looks pretty, and then you turn on your TV and everything looks horrible. I don't understand why. So we wanted to bring this look and feel in this production. I think that that's changing. But at this point, it was still like a big division. So we wanted to bring this look and feel to our show. Why? Because creative is better than ugly, first. But if we go to marketing research, or audience, remember the millennials, and that's our core audience, they watch everything online. You can bring a TV show for millennials, it's going to look ugly. I think that's pretty. So it needs to speak. Means you need to speak the same visual language because it lives online and lives in both places. So every section we shot with two objectives, the TV side and the digital side. So just to show you an example here, it's the dress code section. I think we saw this as part of the trailer. And each person that we interviewed was a mini section that we posted in the website. So in the website you have just one episode of one of the persons that is dressed up. But we also did a lot of photography because it was another nice way to share this content. And inspiring, it's a cool photography in this type of setting. So this is one of the dress code, the street style section. So everything was connected with all different media. Then we did the brand integration. Remember I was saying we started from the script. This is in Spanish, I'm sorry, but because it's a production script. But again, from the get-go, our client was there. It wasn't not an afterthought. It was right from the story. This is just examples how we integrated the products. For example, at the opening credits, you always have the BlackBerry. When she gets lost in the city, she uses the GPS to find herself. Then, you see her, she uses the tablet. Here, which Argentina has a foundation, and we're doing a story with this lady. She leads a crowdfunding website in Latin America, the #1 crowdfunding website in Latin America. So everything, all the when we integrated the project and everything was done in the tablet. So again, it was not in your face. It was we need a tablet to do this, or we need phone, etc. So it was always trying to make it subtle and seamless in a way. But there's other sections that are also shot in different objectives. And that's when we integrated the editorial side, the print side. So we shot some TV, some digital, and some other editorial fashion, but everything integrated. So we partnered with very important photographers back in the area. Rick Paganini is a really good photographer in Brazil. So with them, we did editorial fashion. So this is part of what went on air. So this is just a combination of many of the stories we did in editorial fashion. But as we show on TV or online the stories or he is taking the pictures for Argentina, then at the same time we were in production, we have these publishing magazines, which is very interesting. So we have articles published about PR, it was editorial fashion, it was part of our strategy. So, and again, connecting everything with the show. And as I said, it could be, as Steve Fowler said at some point, developers, if you guys remember that funny video, I would say integration. I guess you get the point. We also did a lot of music, and this was interesting because every band we shot it in a very different style, taking input and segregation their own setting. So those are that's the music. We always close the show with a music band. And that's some of the bands that we do. And our fashion designers, again, some of the content, some of the different designers in many artists as well. And again, with that dialogue between like street art, which is Cobra, he has a really cool mural. I don't know if you guys have seen it in the Highland Park. That one is a very colorful mural. And Edwin Schlossberg, with a very important Mexican interior designer in the Sao Paulo Bienal. So you have street art, you have the Bienal of Sao Paulo, which is crazy. So that's a great way to post-apocalyptic post-production for the madness. So those are our teams, digital and TV. These are our hardwares, 1 megabyte storage. And this is we produce a TV show. This is like a show in one hour episode in 30 seconds. Anyhow, we don't have to mention. So again, everything was more friendly. From the beginning, I didn't believe that we needed to create an app because for this type of show that is on air for 2-3 months, it would be very complicated to maintain. But everything is more friendly, which is what I believe is more important. And I hope the content was online, some of the pieces, and again, it was shared through the interwebs. So after 8 months of development, 2 months of pre-production, 2 months of production, 3 months of post, we survived the creative process, the insanity and the madness of creating a multiscreen rather than entertainment TV show. So that was that part. But there was some challenges, obviously. To create this project is every project has some challenges. So first one, I would say, the first one of the challenges was an interesting challenge because it's the integration part. How you, with new ideas, come to a traditional network and sell the story of doing a multi-screen brand entertainment TV show. So that was an interesting first challenge. The second challenge was the time next, digital versus television. That is a huge challenge because digital sometimes felt like an afterthought, and it's not. It's as important as television, and you guys know that, preaching to the choir here. But also, digital at the core of the budget. I think that is an important, if I would say there's a key learning from this type of project is, again, do your budgets with all the digital needs to be at the core. Also budget balance in the same way. Separate teams, that is crucial. You cannot have your editing team doing the online part because they have an air date, they have to meet, and they're editing a 5-minute version for the web. That is definitely doesn't work. We tried and we failed miserably and then fixed it anyway. And then this is very important to me, have a shared vision with your team. And that goes to any project. I think this is also common sense. But a shared vision, I mean, from the crew members to the production executive producers, everybody needs to have the same vision. And this is a project that might look easy and simple, but fashion art is a subjective term, it's a subjective area, and it's important that you have a vision and everybody shares that vision and they go and they make it happen. So going back to the intersections, and we'll make sure to the end. This was, in a way, it says first more advantage, good and bad. This was, I don't know if the first one of the first one, I guess, from this scope, the first one in the region, in Latin America. And this is a more existential question, I think. Is it good or bad to be the first mover? I don't know. Sometimes it's good because it's good to be the first, to put your little flag there and you did it, we're the first one, but sometimes they're misunderstood. They're the crazy guy who went there with the first guy. So it's a double-edged sword. But at the end, I do think it's good. Because when you're the first and when you're doing this type of crazy project, you take risks. You get out of your comfort zone. You do things that you usually don't do. And I think that brings great creativity, and that it's the best space to create good ideas. So my opinion is that it was a good experience in that sense. So that's our story, and that's our production. Thank you. Do you have any questions or this side? Sure. So we're ready to
We'll take some questions. I have a quick question for you first. Was the appetite for innovation coming from Turner or from BlackBerry for this project?
from us as producers.
Well, I mean, which, like, you guys were the innovators, but like, and we all are trying to do
I think
this.
so. I agree with that.
Which was Turner or the brand Penny that was kind of funding it more eager to do that?
The brand was very eager. He wanted to be perceived as an innovator in the area, and a bit of both. But yeah, the brand was very eager with the show. It was very
Cool. Any other questions?
Hi, Michael. So was this primarily a Spanish language project, Portuguese project, or
English project. English project because it was for Brazilian market and it was for Latin America. So that was the decision of making it in English. So it works for Brazil and also works for all the countries in Latin America, and we just put in subtitles. But we did, of course, the interviews that were conducted in Spanish. So it's, I would say,
I was just, I was surprised at the trailer that people were speaking English. I would have thought that English first language, would have been Spanish.
we were always, it wasn't a question of casting the right interviews. We were always the first, we were always looking for people who spoke English. So that was one of the, sometimes you're going to prepare a great artist and it doesn't matter the language. So it was always with subtitles. But the opening of the show was always in English. When she was going through the city with her own thoughts and giving any commentary on the stories, everything was in English.
I have another question. I'm going to interrupt. Sorry. Who did the social media? Did your team do the social media?
We had a team in Venezuela that made the social media called Cortés.
That's a very impressive presentation.
Thank you.
You created an integrated product, an integrated project. The random person in one of the countries where this was available, do they experience the integrated project, or do you expect that they'll hit it at one or another of the many ways that you did it?
That's a great question. I think in one of the other ways. I think we got a lot of viewers online, for example. I don't have the final numbers of like Eric's cable, and they're not like looking for like how many people was watching or anything like that. But I think they were watching one or the other. To make sure that everyone integrates, you need a very strong advertising push. And that's not something we had. It's the first season, you know what I mean? So it was an experiment for everyone.
Any other questions?
Just to build on that, sorry, how did the TV audience do, and were they a big participant in the full spectrum of where all media was available? Was the TV audience strong, or?
Yeah, it was strong. It was strong in social media. It was when the show was on air. Actually, had a really good. The show was Tuesdays 8 p.m., which is a decent schedule. So it was a lot of movement in social media. While people was watching the show with comments and look at the outfit, hashtags going around back and forth.
Okay, we have one more question.
Where is this leading you? Can you do another project like this? Have you gotten sort of renewals?
Leading what personally?
Yeah, is you do something like this again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I was saying, I live in the middle of entertainment and advertising just by the way my life worked. So, absolutely. Even though I'm doing a scripted television series right now, I am also doing other projects that are around entertainment, and I'm in the process of we have some ideas. Absolutely.
One final question. When you were developing the show, or when you were developing, like pitching the show, I assume that you presented the vision for the 360, like the fact that digital wasn't an afterthought. How did that pitch go? Like, I've been there and done that, and it's very difficult. It's hard to get people that are so focused in one space to think about the other areas.
Actually, they were welcoming that aspect of the show. They were because we're talking about fashion and trends and music. So that was the reason. It was always, oh, this is different. So that was it.
Cool. A couple other questions.
Just to follow up though on that, the lead, you mentioned it took about 3 months to edit.
Yeah, because it was during production.
Sure, yeah. You had to all shows what you need to do. So was there a disconnect in terms of the social media and immediacy side to a lot of the news that was developing? Because you're now like 6 months to a year from when you may have actually shot.
No, actually, no. We shot when the first episode aired, like the 3rd week of production.
Oh, okay, so you're rolling.
Yeah. I was actually looking. I was in the van. Yeah. With my iPhone looking at the cuts. Okay, this is the first episode, and doing comments, and then going to vacation and shoot something. So it was literally a parallel process. And we were doing the post-production in Argentina, where we were shooting Mexico, for example. So that's why the iPhone was very
And that's why you need the social media in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Partial.
Yeah.
Last question.
Since it's in English, is it available, or was it available, or will it be available at all to experience in an English language country like us?
As of today, no. Hopefully in the future, I don't know. Hopefully we'll get syndicated or something. I don't think so this one. There's some parts, no, because it was part of this, everything was while the show was on air. So right now it's just bits and pieces on the MANIFESTO website, but not everything that was at the time that the show aired. Because the whole idea was to have everything while the show is airing. So.
One last question.
So you said you were looking at your iPhone, but the show was sponsored by BlackBerry. So
I had a BlackBerry tablet.
So back to the page. So we have all been there and done that, and in this case, obviously, it went really, really well. But if, for example, if we weren't going to do it again, and the client, decides to says at the beginning, oh yes, this is great 360, but then you end up with a cable show because they cut, which is what usually happens. Would you do it? Would you do it if 360 becomes 180 because it's 180?
I don't think this project makes sense. At the end, we're all the rest of our clients in this type of project, but I don't think it makes sense for this project. I think the success and the reason this project works is because it's 360, not because it's just on TV. I would say I don't think this only TV won't work. I think it needs to be online, it needs to be on TV, it needs to be everywhere. So, in print, which I think I was very happy to see our work also in magazines. So. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're going to pivot now. So Ed, you want to set up the great. So we're going to move from a 360 transmedia TV show experience to the world of immersive experience design, which should be very cool. And that's one of the goals of what we try to do programming these types of StoryCode events is bring different types of creators that are creating immersive experiences in different ways. So while we're setting the computer up, we have some really exciting events coming up that I thought I would tell you about. So our June meetup is going to feature Jody Christopherson, who has created the Skype show. The Skype show is an immersive theatrical experience that blends musical theater, cake, Skype conversations, and this is going to be on June 17th, and she'll actually perform a little bit of the show here, and then talk about the making of it, and talk about it as a case study as well. And then in July, we have Jake Price will be presenting Unknown Spring, which is an interactive documentary about the Japanese tsunami that went through the POV hackathon, which is a very cool project. Looks like Ed is ready.
Do you mind if I go to the restroom for a minute?
Please go ahead. So we'll just take a pause here.
So actually, we were going to announce this at the end, but we can talk about it now. So we had a lot of success with the project that we how shall we say, it was a live event, a live theatrical event, immersive event that we held at DCTV about 2 months ago. And this was essentially a small production created by a team of immersive theater people using a blend of technology and live performance to kind of enchant you in sci-fi ways. If you didn't see it, it's still doing its circuit around the city. That came out of our hackathon, our very first story hackathon, and it's actually like the most awesome success story. But what's come out of that is interesting. We are now going to be allowing you guys in our community to pitch us on live immersive events that you'd like to put on. And so we have partnered with a space in Brooklyn that wants to host you and allow you to you have to be beyond the workshop period, and I'm really just kind of giving you guys a preview of it. We have not formally announced it yet. The idea is that if you have an event, if you have a project that has a live event component to it, you'll have a very willing and happy audience who will demo it for you, play with it. The key is there has to be audience interaction in the project. That's actually the only requirement of the project, and it has to be under an hour in terms of an end-to-end experience. So blending technology, blending narrative, blending live performance, however you want to. We're probably going to roll that out in the next month or two, and it will start happening with some regularity outside of this event starting in the fall. So those of you guys who have stuff that's like location-based or location-based apps that have an immersive component to them, or theatrical experiences, talk to us. It's going to be on a kind of case-by-case basis, because right now we don't have a formal program set up for it. But it's really exciting because the first time this kind of thing has existed in New York City, where we have a kind of a live lab, a live living audience lab. So we're really excited. If you have something that you're hiding away from us, really contact us. We want to know about it. Lots of awesome things can come from that experience, both for you as a creative person and for us as a community. So contact me, Ina at storycode.org, or Mike at storycode.org if you want to get to the front of the line, because you guys are the first to hear about this. All right, I think good.
Cool. So Ina and I were at the Future Storytelling Conference last year, and we met the folks from ESI Design and learned a lot about some of their past work and were blown away. So we wanted to bring them here to share some of their awesome work and some insights that they've had. ESI Design has been around for like 35 plus years, and they've been innovating interactive experiences really since like computers were developed. And so we're really excited to have Ed Purver here, who's going to talk about some of his work at ESI Design. We're really excited about learning about the kind of experience design components that go into that. So with that, we'll turn it over to Ed. Thanks.
Cool. Hi, everybody. Actually, a quick question. There aren't many of us here. Can you all hear me okay if I don't use the mic? Is that all right? Sure. Because I'm not very good with mic. Cool. So yeah, I work at ESI, and we're an experience design firm. So what does that really mean? It means that everything we do pretty much always gets integrated into a physical experience. So we won't do just a website or just an app or just a film or a TV show. There's probably going to be something you can walk into and engage with, a whole sort of environment you can experience and interact with. So as Mike just said, the company goes back quite a ways, and it was founded in 1977 by Edwin Schlossberg, who we're named after. And he started it with the Brooklyn Children's Museum, which back in the late 70s was really one of the first pioneering examples of a museum that was really based on an experiential interactive model. So instead of a lot of print and just photographs and sort of a very much a conventional educational learning environment, which is I present to you the information, you digest the information as I give it to you, which there were much more. There were places to crawl through, there were activities to do, there were machines to make move, and through doing these things, the children were learning about air, fire, and water, and whatever the other element is. Is there 4 or 3? Anyway, you get my drift. Thank you. And so Ed made this stuff, and it was really, he was really a pioneer in that field. Now, jumping way ahead to 2010, many years later, I want to show you a different project that still is based on a museum-style model, but is a corporate tie-in. And was sort of, I thought, to try and very quickly, in a compressed manner, give you an idea of who we are and where we've come from. This would be an interesting project to contrast with the one that I just flew through. So it was in 2010, during the World Expo in Shanghai. And this was the corporate pavilion, which was funded by a consortium of corporations out there. And as you can see, it was a huge, it was a building that had a 3-dimensional skin of LED around it. And the movement of the LED is actually driven by the activity of the visitors inside it. So it's a museum-style experience in that you go in and you keep moving and you go through a kind of evolving narrative experience. Now we're here to talk about storytelling. This is StoryCode. And the story here was the identity of Shanghai, the past, the present, and the future, and the identity of that community. So people came in, we tried to really design a good environment for people to wait, anticipating the long lines that always happen in these kind of events. And so we called people, and we recycled rainwater that we collected in the building. It was all filtered, and then was misted out to cool people down. So that kept people in a physical state that was a little more, manageable, and at the same time, taking the opportunity to start to sort of drop little ideas in their head to help them understand how to engage with the experience later on. So introducing characters that they'll meet later on who will kind of instruct them in ways to engage with the whole experience. So you start to move upwards and you go up into the experience. You start to go through these different environments that sort of look at the natural past of Shanghai. There are interactive elements. If you passed your hand over these wands, they would change color. The whole environment was changing color to sort of reflect the different states of the different seasons of nature in the area. Lots of different types of technology coming together to make a whole. There's projection, there's LCD screens, there's the acrylic wands that are coming up from the floor, and which is quite an ESI thing, trying to find ways to combine multiple media into one sort of overall experience. And then you get into areas that reflect the past, and you move into areas that are more contemporary, until you move into like the 360 cinema, which is all about the future of Shanghai, where the audience would meet this character that was introduced to them at the very beginning when they were in line, who starts to explain to them that if they clap their hands to make sound, or if they move their bodies to move, they are going to be the ones controlling the lights on the outside of the building, which was the first thing that they saw when they approached the experience to begin with. And so therefore the kind of underlying message is you can be part of the future of Shanghai. And what is a nice detail was that a lot of the media that we saw when we got to the sort of more contemporary area of the story of Shanghai was all, well, not all, but largely community submitted. So this is a graphic that was used on a poster, on a sort of promotional campaign a year in advance of the expo, to start people understanding that they could contribute media to this piece, this experience that was going to reflect their landscape. So there was a website that people could post to, and that was super successful. And we had tons and tons of imagery that populated a lot of the show. And I sort of point this out because it's a theme that I'm going to come back to many times through this presentation, because I'm starting by talking about, well, very quickly, what's ESI, what are some examples of different things we do. I'm going to talk a bit more about myself, about what I was doing before I came to ESI and why I joined ESI and why they wanted me. And also how this sort of community engagement and telling the story of place and people and how they interact with structures and the context of structures is very important to what we do. So I'll show you like some of the quick videos so that you see more than just still images. This is a mixture of renderings and actual documentation, but you'll get the drift. So you get the drift. And what a big change between that original sort of very non-profit, community-based thing to this kind of big-scale, corporately funded experience. And we still do both. So we're starting a concept design now for the Statue of Liberty Museum, but at the same time, I'm working on a number of corporate-funded media architecture projects. So we really balance our work in those two fields to this day. So I'm a senior designer, and I specialize in integrating digital media into architecture. Like, that's my thing. And I came from, I guess, a mixture of art and freelance design, always experiential. In fact, I realized when I was putting together this deck that several years before that Shanghai project was on, I was working on a much smaller 3D LED display, which I was the interaction designer for. Which was in the Liberty Science Center, just over the water in Jersey City. And I'm pretty sure it's still there, because I was actually driving past it the other day, and I saw it through the window and saw the lights going. I think it's doing something different than the program that we installed back in 2007, but it's still there, which is nice to see. So this was my first job out of grad school. Actually, I started it while I was still in grad school. I started working with a company called Light Projects, and I did a number of different public art and non-profit permanent LED installations with them. But it meant that I was immediately starting to work with very custom displays and really sort of exploding video off the normal 16:9 aspect ratio and the normal sort of two-dimensional approach because I was always interested in spatial design and how do we expand media into experience of walking into a room and so on. So this was an interactive piece that you could play with. You could turn it into a sort of three-dimensional mirror and make it work, which was great for kids, who are the primary visitors to the museum. But moving on, I had come from projection design for theatre, and this was a piece for the Builders Association, who are a company based here in New York. We've always done great, large-scale media projects, and I was interested to work with them because they always try to do something different. And this was a fun project where I worked with a team of Peter Flaherty and Austin Schweitzer, Josh Higginson and Joe Solovsky to come up with a solution to what you do with big projection screens when you don't want to project any media on. Like in the middle of a show, they're just always there. Even if you put black light on them, they're still kind of glowing in this grey way in a dark environment, and they're this kind of big piece of set that you don't want. So we came up with this custom system to disappear all these screens, and all of these guys can like open and close like a book. And we developed like compressed air, it gives us the force to open it, and a solenoid was opening and closing. And so I wrote a software patch that would make all of these guys open and shut, sort of changing little different constellations and opening, and video being triggered, and sound being triggered, and light being triggered at the same time, which was really, really good fun. But I decided that this was my last ever theatre project, because I decided I was less and less interested in the performative paradigm of we do something cool and you watch it, and I just wanted to do more and more stuff like the museum project I just showed you. It's much more interactive. But projection was always something I was interested in, so I was still getting grants as an artist and doing like architectural projections out in public space. This was one where members of the public submitted messages they wanted to share with their city, and it was performed in sign language by 2 performers. And it was then mapped onto buildings, so it looked like 2 neighbors were reaching out of their windows and collaboratively kind of signing these little messages very silently across the urban landscape. And projects like this led to me getting commissioned to make a piece for the Liverpool Biennial in England, where I'm from, in 2010. The Liverpool Biennial is a fantastic show. It's the biggest visual art show in England, and they're really, really lovely people who run it. And they asked me if I could make a public art installation in a specific part of the city. And Liverpool is kind of like England's Detroit, I suppose, because there are very large parts of it that have basically been depopulated through a mixture of years of recession and neglect from the government in London, and also very strange city policy, where whole neighbourhoods had been intentionally depopulated, and the houses all tinned up, and they were waiting just to be knocked down, perfectly good houses, so that the contract could be given out to build new houses where the old houses used to be. And the intention of this was to stimulate economic growth somehow. But anyway, it was a source of great tension and unhappiness in the city, and whole neighbourhoods were going dark, basically. And Anfield was one of those neighbourhoods, and they asked me if I could make a project in Anfield using at-risk youth as the participants in the project. So that's what I did. And this is a still from the final installation. And the idea, basically, was to reverse the depopulation process that was going on. So this is an example of what all the streets around there were looking like at this time. And so what I wanted to do was reverse the process and take the metal off the houses again and illuminate what had become a darkened street, and illuminate it by repopulating it with some of the people who would be there if this policy wasn't going on. And so I worked with these kids. We worked in a very low budget, on the flyway, shooting in community centres and so on. The biennial guys were great in coordinating it all, because I was coming back and forth. I was living here in New York at the time, so I would go back and forth to England. And we had amazing social workers and community workers who kept a relationship going with the kids while I was away, and helped them understand who I was and what I was doing there. So we set up in churches, community centres, and we'd shoot. And the idea was to shoot enough video that could be spatially mapped into the buildings in a way that would make some kind of simple visual sense. And the kids, this is Franny, the kids were really tough. Like, they were at risk. They're probably being excluded from school. They're probably being excluded from home. A lot of them have alcohol and drug habits, and the kids were like 11 years old. And so it was very, very hard to keep them engaged. And it was funny, but it was also challenging. And this is Franny. One of his favourite things to do would be to pinch my stills camera when I wasn't looking, and just take selfies all around the place. And which was pretty great for me, because I got all of these shots that I would never get, right, if I was making them pose. I've got a whole series of bizarre shots of Franny, like making weird gun signs and copying American videos that he's seen and stuff like that around the place. But he also took brilliant pictures of some of the others. Now this is Ria, and who was brilliant. And I'm just curious to know how many of you know what it means if an English school girl does that with her hand? Not so much. What was that?
I think it's the same as ours.
The middle one?
The middle one.
It's the middle one, yeah. Actually, I'm going to digress for a minute and explain the V sign, because with StoryCode, so there's an excellent myth, I don't know if it's really true, but they say, over the years we've had a lot of arguments with the French. And so it goes back centuries to the time of Henry V, when we were having yet another war over something pointless, I'm sure. And at that point, even though the French had a much bigger army, the English were in possession of a new technology. And the technology was a longbow. And this is just a very big bow, right? But it's really, you have to be really, really strong to use it. But it fires and arrows so fast and hard, it was armor penetrating, which is why it was a new technology, because the French relied on their armor, but this negated all of that. It was like the next step in warfare. And so it took years to master it. So the French couldn't suddenly say, when they found out, oh shit, we should do that too. Because it takes years to learn how to shoot it properly. And so the English won a battle called Agincourt, right? And the English had previously been pretty much battered and slaughtered by the French in previous battles and wars and so on and so on. So when the cream of the French aristocracy charged them on their horses with all the armor and got cut down by longbowmen who were normally poor, longbowmen who were on a hill did this, because when the French captured a longbowman, they would cut off these fingers, because that's what you use to fire the bow. And they were so dangerous as enemies that the French would do this to English captives. So once the battle was done, the myth goes that all the English were like, fuck off, you French. Thusly, I get wicked little pictures of wicked little schoolgirls doing this when I do art projects. See, but if I took the picture, they would do something like this, right? And it was really hard to not, to stop them doing this, because they think this is what they should do when a camera's pointed at them. You know what I mean? Make Angelina Jolie lips or something and pose and wear a lot of pink. But anyway, we worked together over a number of months, and in the end, we came up with a really lovely project, and I'll show you a little bit of documentation video now. I think I should. There we go. So it's really interesting to have an experience like that and think about, well, what story do I tell? And you can see a couple of different stories in there, right? There's like my desire to express what I see. As an outsider, I can see a situation that's not the happiest situation. And I see their lives from the outside. And so it's me asking them to sit there quietly and look out the windows if they're bored or to lie down to sleep, right? But then there's a story they want to tell, which is like, I'm full of energy, I'm really young, and I don't have to be at school today. And so that is why we need like the trampolining and the flying through the air and the growing foliage and so on around it. Because you have to be really careful in a situation like that not to come in and just sort of tell the outsider's story. Because they don't need that. They don't need another story, I realized quickly, to tell them like, oh, this is kind of shit, you know? They're fully aware of that. They want to celebrate their lives and personalities. And so it was really important to put that in. And the more I put that in, the more they engaged with it. And the more we found a kind of halfway line between them saying, well, who are you and what do you want from us? Can you direct us? And half between that, wait, we have got all of this stuff we want to put in. Because there were times I felt really mean. Like the two girls spent an hour dreaming up some incomprehensible comedy sketch, right? That I then shot for them, with knowing full well I couldn't use it because it didn't fit Windows or anything, you know what I mean? But you go with it, and they just basically get to have a drama class, and that's really cool. And then I figured out a way to help them understand was that I rigged up a camera just to be like a live monitor for them, and put it into Modulate, the VJ software, and just put in a still of all the houses I was going to use with the windows cut out, and that was reflected back to them on a large monitor. So they could see, oh, right, if I move like this, I'm in this window, then I'm in that window, and they started to understand what the project was. But no matter how many renderings I made and photos I showed them and stuff like that, they never believed it was going to happen until it was up, and then they all went insane. And basically ran up and down the street for hours with all of their friends, going around on bicycles and stuff like that, like screaming, I'm a giant! I'm a giant! And that was really amazing. And what was amazing was how the community took care of it, because this is a really violent and tough place to live. And at some point in the development process, I sat down with the guys who were buying it. Actually, I remember we just had a visit from a security consultant who just scared the shit out of us, which I guess is his job, because he's hoping the more he scares us, the more we're going to pay him and his guys, right? But he basically reminded us that we were about to put a ton of computers and projectors into a place where people will break into a tinned up house just to try and find a bit of metal, you know what I mean, that they can sell for scrap. So he was like, how long do you think this is really going to last? And he was like, you know, we need people down there with firearms training because it is that kind of neighborhood, you know? And so when he left, we were like, oh, Jesus, what are we doing? We're going to look so stupid when this gets ripped off after 2 days. But it didn't. And I'm pretty sure it was because people recognized the kids in the windows. And so when this went on, people started to come out of houses. You barely noticed there were still some residents left among all of the closed houses. And they'd come out. I remember some woman coming out carrying her kid. And she's like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, you know, that's Ria from around the corner, and blah, 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 blah. And I think they're a very tight community. They don't even go to the city center. They've never seen public art anywhere, never mind in their own neighborhood. But the fact that they recognized these people gave it validity for them. And I think stopped them from going, fuck this shit, like who are you, who do you think you are, walking in here and being all pretentious and arty. But they understood, okay, this really is about us and for us, so we're down with this. And no one's allowed to nick it. And I'm pretty sure that's what went on, otherwise it couldn't have been there for a month. It was there for a month without someone coming in through the roof and nicking a projector. And so the year after that, I got commissioned to do another public art piece by the city of Portland in Oregon. And that was a really interesting storytelling experience as well. Because just like in Liverpool, they were very specific. Can you work in this area with these people? And you have to figure out what story is present there. In this one, quite bizarrely, they wanted me to work with bridges. Now, I didn't know that Portland, Oregon, has the nickname Bridgetown. But I found this out very quickly. So I collaborated with a local musician and sound artist called Tim Rush. And together the two of us narrowed it down and decided we would work with just two bridges. One's called the Morrison Bridge and one's called the Hawthorne. And we decided we would set up some kind of relationship between the two of them. And we decided that the story we would tell would be somehow to amplify the voice of the bridges. We decided we would find the voice. So this is the Morrison, and this is the Hawthorne. And we've decided to do voice because this one has a naturally resonant grate. As you drive over it, it's like got a metal grate, and it hums. So when a car goes across, it makes a different hum to a truck and to a bike and so on. So we thought, well, as we were walking around trying to find some identity, some voice or something like that, that was clearly the one to go for. So we decided this would be the sound source, and that one, the Morrison, would be the visual canvas. And so we decided we would have the audience here on the Hawthorne, we would have them listen here, and we would have them look about a third of a mile away and see stuff on the Morrison. And so, as part of this whole project, I got to go places where the public don't normally go, which was fantastic. Like, I had permission, I would get guided tours from the bridge guys, they would take me down into the guts and everything, and I'd hang out, and they would make fun of me because I would take way too long, and they'd get bored, and I'd be like, wait, let me get pictures of this oil, and they'd be like, you're ridiculous, because that's just, it's just dirt. And in here, this is what they call the pit, and that is a counterweight. Because these are bridges, I think it's called a bascule bridge, and it opens like this. So it needs this massive counterweight to allow it to open easily. And it's just a really small engine that opens this massive bridge that people go across every day. This is actually a room, has a door on the other side, and you walk in and they put concrete blocks. It has hundreds of concrete blocks in it. And day by day, as the heat makes this thing expand and contract, they like take one out. Okay, that's better. You know what I mean? And it's pretty fantastic, and you can go down. So when this bridge opens, this thing lowers down into the pit, right? That's what the pit is there for. It's massive, like millions of pounds comes down. And they let me go and stand there because there's a buffer that stops it. Just like a little bit, I stand right there, and I shot a movie, like standing there, and this thing coming right towards me, and I did have a moment of doubt. Like as it got to really approach me, that I was a bit of a fool, but I was fine. And you could also let me crawl on these little catwalks right underneath the surface of the bridge. So you've got cars coming like inches above my head, and that's quite a crazy experience. Like the first one that came, I really yelled out loud because I wasn't expecting it, and you get hit by a shadow and noise at the same time. But I'll show you a little video that gives you a bit of a sense of what I'm talking about. And you'll hear the different tones, in the different tones that different cars make. So this is while this is while I'm researching. Right, we're making these videos that we're putting online. They help us in our process, but it also started to get a little bit of publicity for the event, for the installation. So we decided that we would put contact points on the structure of the bridge and take the vibration levels from all of the different traffic that was going over it. And that we would visualize this in real time on the other bridge. Because we found out that there is a fiber optic network in existence, already installed, that they use for emergency communications, and they let me use it. So I could send data really, really fast from one bridge to the other. And so we've got big projectors sitting right there on these ears, and the sound's being created over here on the portal. And in real time, we get these lovely little sound waves. So that was good. So we had like the voice of the bridge going. And what we did is we put it through this software that we developed ourselves in Max MSP that created our own ambient soundscapes, because just listening to the raw vibration data is not very exciting. I mean, you need to give it, do something with it, right? So we created these kind of ambient shifting soundscapes. And on top of that, we needed more story. Because here we have the voice of the structure, and we like that. So that's going on in real time, but we want the voice of the people. Because people work on these bridges all the time. Here's a case in point. They have bridge operators, and they're there 24/7. And these are very interesting people, because they sit there, and they hear, and they see all sorts of stuff. And they're very, very quiet people. Like, some of them are a little bit dubious about talking to us, because they're very reclusive. They work alone for hours and hours on end. But they also get to watch. And they will see the weather change, they see the traffic change, they're very in tune with the boat traffic. They hear what people are saying, because when the bridge is open, all these people on bikes and pedestrians, they all gather. And they hear all of these stories, they've heard people breaking up, you know. And so we interviewed the bridge operators, we interviewed the bridge engineers and the maintenance workers. And this was pretty interesting. And we decided that we would take their portraits and visualize their faces. Sorry, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but we decided how it would have to work is we'd record the interviews. They would be pre-recorded. The vibrations would be live, but we would drop the sounds of the interviews pre-recorded into the soundscape, so you have more to listen to on the bridge. And I'm actually totally ahead of myself. So this is what I should be talking about. Just the fact that engaging with these guys and taking their pictures was awesome. And it was basically awesome because of Tony. And Tony, this is a bit of an intense picture of Tony, but he's a really, really great guy. He's actually really imposing, he's really tall. And forgive me, he really didn't trust me. Because he thought I was an arty weirdo with a funny accent. But over time, we became really firm friends. And Tony had recently retired, but he'd run the bridge section for like, I don't know, 25 years or something like that. So they all completely respected him and they would do anything Tony says. And Tony was like, basically said, listen, you need to go and talk to these guys and let them take a picture and all this stuff. And don't worry, they're not going to do something terrible with it. Because they had previous artists, I think, who had done much more conceptual work that they could relate to. But we were proposing something that is far more accessible. And that's basically my normal policy with public art, is do something very simple and very much about the community, because it just works better, to be honest with you, in that context. So we had the voices of their stories, and their faces, the face of the narrator gets revealed by the sound waves when they start telling their story, right? And sometimes it's video, and sometimes it's photos, and you might have two storytellers at the same time. But basically, the audience gathered all along here, and there are speakers rigged on the structure above them. A computer is up here in this operator's house. Our microphones are all connecting up to our computer, which is our control room. And so people hang out, the weather was lovely, and they would listen to this ambient soundscape and then hear these stories popping in. These people are looking up to listen to a story that's being told from the speaker above them. And, and we have some video, wait. So before I play, the first thing you're going to hear, or nearly the first thing you're going to hear, is the voice of my collaborator, Tim, okay? Who also has a radio show, so he's got this radio voice. And what you're going to hear, it was the voicemail you would hear if you called our number. Because every now and again in the projections, there would be a phone number, because we realized that everyone walking along the park side of the river can't hear the sound that the people on the bridge can. So we set up an asterisk server that allowed a real-time stream of the same sound that's on the bridge to come over your cell phone. So every now and again we put up a phone number and people would call it from the park and they could listen in real time on their phone, along with the people in the bridge. So you're going to hear that voicemail you would hear. And then there's a bit of an edit. Like, the story doesn't necessarily make sense with the face you see, because then it would just go on for hours because it was very ambient. So this is the sound of our soundscape. This is the sound of the bridge.
A temporary public art installation in Portland, Oregon. Please stay on the line to listen live to the sounds of the Hawthorne Bridge, mixed with the pre-recorded voices of the workers of the Multnomah County Bridge section. For more information, you can view the project at www.hiddennlifeofbridges.org.
structures and do, the security inspection. And I was up on top of the Hawthorne, I believe it was the West Tower, or the West County Tower. And I was up there and I was looking around, and an F-16 jet fighter came, and it banked, very hard to, circled around right above the bridge. And it was, maybe like 1,000 feet, I don't know what the altitude was, but as he turned, he, went full throttle, he just propped out. And it was right, the engines or whatever, the angle that was right where I was at, and I could just feel the percussion of the engine while I was up on top of the tower, about 114 feet up. It was really high up. Just to feel that rumble as you're up on the tower was rather intimidating.
For months, you'd be out there on the Riverside Bridge and you put one foot in front of the other on a crack. And follow that crack until it came to a man. And then back off. Find another crack. And go like that. And he would do this for months. One end of the bridge to the other. You'd see him one day and get caught all the way through. Poof. And then just back up. All of a sudden, just back up. I couldn't figure it out for a while. There were no places to go. And then you walk back pretty close and you can see that he was looking right down the cracks. Follow the crack, back up, find the other crack, go this way, go this way, until he got across the bridge.
So you can see that people figured out where one of the microphones was, which I thought was great. Tim thought was terrible because it was destroying the sound. But when people were literally jumping up and down on that bit of the sidewalk, which I love because I like interactive things. So every time they jump, they would see this massive sound wave explosion happening over there on the bridge over there. But I thought that was fantastic. What else about that project? I would say this, that again, some of the bridge guys who were in the show were given overtime to be there for safety, right? So they were directing traffic, basically making sure that traffic, we closed the lane of traffic so that it was safer. And so some of them were down there flagging. And I remember one of them grabbing me and being so overexcited that he was really in it, that it was really real. And his family, he called his wife and kids to come down and look at it, and they were there as well. And just his overexcitement was, it was so great. And I was just like, I told you so. But again, people don't really believe it until they really see themselves in it. And we had a talk back with the public, like the day after opening night or something, and Tony was there, the tour guy who facilitated the whole thing. And I remember Tony kind of coming clean because someone asked him a question about his role in it and his process. And he said that, to be honest with it, at the beginning, he thought it was going to be a nightmare. And he was sort of going, oh, why did I agree to do this? And he said, but due to the process and listening to me talk about it, he had come to see the bridges in a new way, which he thought was impossible because he's worked with them for multiple decades. But for him, they're just a source of problems and something that has to be kept working. And then I was there giving them all names and asking them weird questions like, if this one had a personality, what would it be like? What kind of a person is this bridge? Which is your favorite bridge and why? And so on and so on. And he was watching me clamber all over the bridges and see all these details. And he said that I had introduced a sense of play into how he looked at the city, which he had never really thought of doing before. And B, he would do this again in a heartbeat and would have more artistic projects and so on and so on and so on. And I think after that, or after the success of this event, the curator at the Public Art Commission in Portland had done it, said that she thought this was one of the only truly public art pieces she'd ever produced that was really for the public and about the public and serving the community it was meant to serve. So that was really, really gratifying and a relief. So some examples then of the extracurricular activities I had as a freelance designer, and some of the projects that I showed to the ESI guys when they'd be interested in bringing me on board. And I'll show you now, we started with ESI, and I talked about that thread of community involvement, and I talked about the corporate collaborations and so on. So I'll show you some of what I have been doing since I've been there. So this is a building wait, where are we? It's not far away, is it? It's on Hudson Street, between Van Dam and Charlton, is it? Anyway, we've got 9 pretty large custom LED screens behind diffusion glass that wrap around a long lobby as you go in. So they're on either side of you as you head in, with a screen right down there at the end. And the way we design the displays and the media is to move with you. So this is an entrance and exit experience. And so we get to design the actual physical layout of the display. So we collaborate with the architect. This is a gut renovation of a building. And we're also thinking about, as we make our custom displays, we think about how do we customize our media to work effectively with this display. So you have a responsibility. Once you come up with like a physical hardware that's not your conventional display, you then need to make the content that really, really works with that. Otherwise, what's the point? And so we still try to make locally relevant media. We have different sections of media for all the different boroughs of New York. We actually got a street photographer to go out and take pictures just of people who live and work in the very, very immediate neighborhood. And we have it set up with a lovely content management system so that that's really easily updatable. Every 6 months, another photographer can go out, take more pictures, you just upload them in, give them a name, and they're in the show. All of this is programmatic. And with that, maybe it's time just to see some video of it. So very New York-centric video. You have these kind of different strata, yellow cabs, subway that wraps around you, around the whole room, sort of time-lapse view of the skyline above it. And we work with this strata because the LED itself has different resolutions. We have like, I think, 8mm band upper and lower, and then 4mm along the middle. But the glass kind of smooths it all together. But you can see again, like we focus the animated media so that the action is in the middle band when it should be. So we mix up stuff that's really, really gentle and really ambient with stuff that's like more informational. Right? So this is the weather. We get the weather from around the world, including Death Valley and Mount Everest, which I like. And so that's always changing. And so that breaks it out into a sort of international level, and then I think of it as coming in concentric circles. So it goes sort of, you get international weather, you get like the city-style videos of the subway, and then it comes into the neighborhood. We have historical New York photographs, you have people of the neighborhood, and then it comes right inside, because we also have stuff that's all about the utility and energy usage of the building itself. So we are connected into the security turnstiles. We also have meters on like the steam and the water and the electricity, and so we can relate over time how electricity usage is connected with building population. The idea of that is not really to prove any point with statistics, it's more to sort of put into people's consciousness to be a bit more energy efficient as they work and leave the office. We also put 5 cameras on the roof of the building and sat up there for 3 days until the clouds were active enough. We've got a time lapse that's kind of spatially correct. So as you walk into the lobby, if you look right, you see on the screens what you would see if you look that direction up on the roof. So you see like downtown and so on. If you look to the left, you get Midtown and the Empire State Building. So how we design for these custom setups is that we mock it all up in the office. Because these are permanent installations, unlike my little fun projects, which are temporary and therefore more forgiving. These are permanent. And so they need to be integrated with general contractors, architects, electricians, plumbers, and so on and so on and so on. So you can't make any mistakes. You can't suddenly say, oh, the image is too big, move the projector back a bit, or something like that, which I could do with some of the other projects. And so we got the LED, we had this strange idea for this mixed resolution. We knew we wanted glass on top of it, but we didn't know how far away the glass should be. We didn't know exactly how to make our media for this mixed resolution LED. So we have to have it set up. Otherwise, we can't work accurately. So this is what we do. Once we go through concept design, and when we're fully done, we go through concept design, then we move into design. We do 50% design, 100% design, and that goes through a whole process with the client. But once that's all clear, then we move into production. So this is the kind of activity you'll see in production, where the systems integrator, which was McCann Systems on this project, comes in and builds for me one full-scale example of one of the largest screens in the installation. And only when I've got that, can I start making the media accurately and start hanging bits of glass at different distances from the LED to make sure that I'm going to get the diffusion that I want. And so you need to test fonts and all that kind of stuff because nothing looks exactly like it does on your screen when you put it up on an LED screen with glass in front of it. I'm going to jump on. So I know I'm going on for a very long time. I'm really sorry. Oh, wow. Anyway, I'm having fun. So, 221 Main, another project that I did last year in San Francisco. Same client, and interesting challenge. Building is built in the 70s, not exactly a thing of great beauty, and yet it's downtown in Soma, and it's surrounded by a lot of technology companies and new buildings, and they want tenants who are technology companies. That's what everyone wants in San Francisco. So they're asking us, can you apply something of a contemporary digital touch to make our building feel a bit more cool, essentially? And so you've got this very, very dark entryway. We thought that your lobby, your actual entrance, is set back a long way from the street. There's no presence at all on the curbside. Inside, you have this rather bizarre stone light boxes and all of this wood veneer that must have looked great once, but it's from a different decade. And so we came up with this solution. This is actually a photograph, not a rendering, that we would connect the interior with the exterior with one continuous ribbon of light imagery and give it some serious curbside presence, but without overwhelming it. And so as you walk in, you have this ceiling of light above you, and you're walking in towards this very large screen inside the lobby that you're actually going to go through to get to the elevators. Most of the content is sort of regionally inspired nature videos, essentially. It's all about Northern California, except for this moment where we do the weather, which we broke down to neighborhood microclimates, because the Bay Area is so strange. You know, it can be cold and foggy at the beach while it's sunny in the Mission. So we wanted to tell people the weather on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, so as they leave, it's actually kind of useful. You can see, oh, tonight in my neighborhood it is warm, so I'm going to stay home. And here's some example video. I think overall, what I was trying to do is really invite people into the building. Like I spoke before about if you make a custom display in terms of hardware, you have to make quite strange video to have it work on this very, very unique system. So we really tried to think of things that would move in and move out, and that would be effective, and that would play with perspective as well. So check it out, and you'll see what I mean. It's really fun when you see people walking in, this happens. It's like a race against time as they try to pull their phone out and record it. But they're never quite fast enough, and like the whale is like getting away from them. And so this introduces the weather, but it's always changing the background depending on what the weather forecast is going to be. So this is what you see if it's going to be, if it's rainy, or going to be rainy. And likewise, the skies always change. And that's great, because it's such a big canvas, so we treat the seating as sky. So we got water for the ocean, the little wave was for the beach, for Ocean Beach, and there's like driving through the redwoods. So we tried to think of different ways. You saw how the wave worked with it. We thought, what would it be like if you had like the view up through the treetops above you in the ceiling, but then the sort of going through depth-wise on vertical surfaces. So the guys here on the West Coast heard about the time lapse we did at Hudson Street, and they wanted one. So I put two cameras on the roof of this building and shot city direction in one and the bay direction in the other. And this is kind of our Yosemite waterfall method, which is awesome. And this is one of the perspective tricks I was talking about. So that's the Golden Gate Bridge. And you understand it as you're walking up to it. It's a bit of an inception and it sort of unfolds, and then you get close. As you walk in through the elevator bay, you can see all the traffic and you totally get it. But the heartbeat of the project for me is just when it just goes to color. So actually, and this is scheduled to happen quite a lot. If you were there on the street, you would see a lot of color. Like I've made an edit that shows you lots of the different, much more sort of rich media. But I really like it to have a consistent identity of riding a line between being a lighting fixture and a media display. Because, you know, it's on a lot. And I don't really want to have a massive TV. So I like it just to be a light source as well. And it means that it doesn't grow old like it would if it was just footage all the time. Because you're going to become very familiar with that footage if you work in that building. But if it's just color, glowing, changing color, that doesn't, you have a very different relationship to that. And it also feels really good. Like when you get to that elevator bay and you walk through a massive field of amber, it just feels healthy, it feels great. So this, again, is like, what's our process like? When we come up with these ideas and the client okays it, we have to make sure it's going to work. So we have a lab in the office, but we did this actually in a warehouse on the edge of town, over on the west coast, on the edge of San Francisco. And so this was our way of us gauging what kind of LED resolution was going to work, and also explaining to the client what we're talking about. Because it's we found it is really necessary to bring them in, and bring them in early. Because I can sit there and show them renderings, and I can explain over the phone why 4 mil is better than 8 mil, and why glass is necessary, but all of that just means nothing to them. Unless they come in and they really see it for themselves. So this is us like showing them, okay, this is what it would look like if you don't put glass in front. So we just get some plastic, some cheap acrylic, we throw up some tiles, we throw up LED pucks that we have onto the ceiling, and we do font tests, and we show them imagery, and then they understand. So this is us showing like the difference it makes the further you drop down the fusion from the ceiling. And the only way to make this at all affordable was to use very, very different LED products. So on the ceiling, we did use these big LED nodes that were as far apart as 4 or 5 inches. And so you could cover that huge amount of square footage without it costing millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then we could save our higher resolution LED for the vertical surfaces. And the vertical surface had a different glass covering than the rest of it, because the front of the building gets hit by sun. So we realized that, and we find ourselves out in a parking lot in New Jersey, which was the closest place we could borrow some LED tiles with the same resolution. And so we'd go out there with lots of different glass samples, and we'd be standing there in the parking lot, clipping these different glass in front of the LED until we find the right type of diffusion and the right type of laminate layer to help boost the contrast of the video so that it can deal with the sun better. And this, there's one more thing I'll show you, which is something that I'm working on right now. So it's this IMK building in Boston, a brutalist masterpiece in my opinion, with lots and lots of raw concrete. It really stands out when you get there, especially because it's in this really big white plaza with this reflecting wall. It's quite strange. It just stands there, and it's very determined, and it's very bold. And so they wanted us, after seeing what we've done in Hudson Street and Main Street, and we've done other projects for them as well, want us to see what ideas we'd come up with for this guy. And so this is a rendering view, exterior-wise. It's a landmark building, so we have to be very, very cautious. But very minimal intervention on the exterior. Like this, it will extrude out, and after dark, we're going to put a very, very, very simple beam of light that runs in that niche, exterior niche, all the way up the building, which is actually a pretty big statement because it's a pretty tall building. And in the lobby, this is a concept rendering. And it's going to be interesting. Most of the time, that rendering is really, really good, almost exactly like what we actually make. This time, you're going to see a difference. Because the concept is the same, but here at this point, we thought these were more solid screens, maybe a little bit more like the Hudson Street one. And I'll show you right now how different it's turned out. But the idea, we're going to have a good thing, is to do some kind of color experience of light here on this niche wall, and then to have these very tall but very thin LED bands here around the elevators. So they're 22 feet high, but only 5 inches wide. So I'm working with these really, really weird aspect ratios. This is 11 very narrow strips of LED light. There's very high resolution, 2.5 millimeters. So this is the lobby before we came along and started playing with it. This is where my strips are going to go. This is the wall where the light's going to be. You can see, got a whole wall of windows here through which you see the reflecting pool. And a whole bunch of windows here through which beams of light come in and illuminate the room. And I tell you that because those are our two visual concepts. And as we visited and looked more at the niche wall, we decided we didn't want to impose these screens on it. We actually just wanted to illuminate the skin of the building. Concrete has this really interesting identity. You can see it sort of weathers, even on an interior wall. I mean, there's been spills, there's been leaks, but we really like that. And we wanted to keep it. We didn't want to hide it. We realized we wanted to actually focus light on it. And so, oh yeah, this is where you can see the reflective wall right through it. So we wanted it to have a conversation between the pool and the niche wall. So one can mirror the other. So here's a rendering of the beams of light concept. We want it to be very slow moving and ambient, pretty gentle. And the idea gentle enough for people to be able to sort of actually enjoy being there instead of feeling like they're sitting next to something frantic. And the idea you can see, they're no longer solid screens. These are just rails. And so this is a custom light fixture that we came up with, concepted and designed ourselves and had fabricated. And what's this going to show us? Exactly. So this is what they are. So this is us mocking it up in the office. And you're going to see there are a series of brushed steel rails which have LED inserted into them so that if they're turned off, it just looks like an architectural feature. It's just these series of nice, like, sort of elegant metal rails in the room that go well with the concrete. But when you turn them on, they're shining light backwards onto the wall. And we have them positioned far enough away from the wall and just far apart on the vertical axis so that the imagery and the light resolves. Again, mock-ups are really essential. We don't really know how well, and in fact this wasn't the first mock-up. The first mock-up we did was much rougher. It was like bits of wood, and the LED we had lying around in the lab that we borrowed from somebody else and we're shining it on the wall and it's just clamps and everything. So this is the next stage of mock-up. This is the guys building it in the lab. That's me saying something annoying to Emily. And then the idea is to make sure that it works, and then we take it up to site. We set up one niche for the client to review. So again, they're really involved at every step of the process, so they really know what they're buying, and this is essential. You know, this is pretty essential in us making a successful project. And this is something I just shot on my phone yesterday to explain to you like how I work. Because once we've got it set up on site like that, we understand it. It is what we thought it would be. The client has seen it and said, yes, I understand it. That's what you said you would do. Then we bring it home and we set it up and we took a photograph of a concrete wall. We print it on the plotter, stick it on the wall in the office, and then I have one bay here and I can start making the media. The media for this guy is all generative. So we're not making videos anymore. Well, I guess I start with videos to concept it, but then we have pre-visualization software. Because this thing is going to be driven, its behavior is driven by external data from the web. So as the sun position changes, the angle of the light rays changes. So during the day, those rays of light are going to shift their whole angle. When we do we have sort of ripples as well to have this visual conversation with the reflecting pool. So we also get wind data from the web. And so as the direction of the wind changes and the speed of the wind changes, the ripples on the wall are changing just as the pool is outside. And so we need to get some pre-visualization software up in the office to make sure that it's really going to work. So this is me walking around with my phone to show you guys. I can probably jump forward because you've seen it. You just saw the mock-up. There are the LEDs. But then, a little more interesting is my interface. So I can see all 10 niches. There are my rays of light. So I can see a visualization of them on the screen, and I can see one niche here in reality. Well, I guess as real as we could make it in the office. And then I can choose to get a close-up on the screen, or I can see a side view on the screen. And this way, I have all of these different controls and parameters. with which I can change. I can totally change the look of this. I'm just showing you, one basically. But there's a ton of different things I can do with this bizarrely low resolution display, which is nearly 1,000 pixels wide, but only 8 pixels high. So if you made a movie for this guy, in fact, the real content for this, can you see it? Maybe not, it's just at the top of the screen. It's so small, you can barely see it on the computer screen, but that is the actual content that goes out to run this wall. And so, I will be back there in Boston. Oh yeah, this night, that's the media I was on there. So I'll be back there in a couple of weeks to finish it off. But I was there a couple of weeks ago, having such a good time, because it was all working, and the guys had set me up with a laptop, so I could sit on one of these couches, and I was remotely controlling the computer in the basement that was running the wall, and I could just sketch. And it's like that moment after months, well, over a year of hard work. Here I am, I'm sitting there, and it's looking just like what we rendered and what we wanted it to do. And I'm like, make it faster, make it purple, make it do this, make it do that. And is that it? And anyway, it was fantastic. And I'm Ed, and this is ESI Design. And thank you for your patience.
Any questions for Ed? Yeah. My mind is blown.
Sorry, I went on for a really long time. That's like an hour. I really apologize. Yeah.
Really nice work, and thank you for presenting. So you're a programmer as well, right?
Not so much anymore.
Okay, but
I was doing quite a lot of programming in my first freelance work out of school.
How do you feel like that helped your design sense? Because it very often it's like an architect and somebody who knows how to code, and somebody who's actually like, what do you think the relationship is between this?
Well, I think it's really helpful to know what's hard and what's difficult. So that helps you design sensibly. And when you consider budget and who you're partnering with, and so on and so on and so on. But it also, I think, helps you design in ways where you can ask for, sorry, I'm taking a long time to answer your question, because I think on the one hand it makes you safe, because you know what can be done, and it's not crazy. But at the same time, you can say, but can you push it in this direction? I haven't quite seen someone do this. Can you do that? And it really, really helps me communicate with the developers. That's probably the best thing about it, and it helps me make design documents that make sense to them. And it means that when they talk to me, I understand what they're saying. And all of that is really, really hugely important, I think.
You have a question?
For the pieces that use video, like the one in San Francisco, do you acquire all your own assets?
It was a mixture. So we had a local photographer shoot a bunch of stills for us that we used. We created the motion graphics in-house. The time-lapse I shot myself on the roof, and then we used some stock as well.
What kind of resolution?
Oh, not very high, because it's LED, so it's not very high resolution. I think our output raster was like 1920 by 1200. Yeah, because I wish I could show it to you, actually. I should have brought it. Because if you'd seen one movie that plays on that one in San Francisco, you would have seen a big chunk of media like this, and that would have been for the lobby wall, with where you walk to the elevators. You would have seen, how do we organize it? Another bit here that was pretty small, and that was the front of the building. And then you would have seen this tiny little strip here. It was the ceiling. Because the ceiling, even though it was the biggest physical area, was 72 pixels wide. Yeah. And so, but we dropped our glass 10 inches away from the LED, which is far enough away to soften it, to resolve it into one smooth image. Because you look at it at an angle, it really works, And that, it would have been way too expensive to cover the ceiling in 10 mil LED or 5 mil LED. Pointless, to be honest with you. Yeah.
A similar question on that. I can't remember which building it was, but the one that had the 4 mil and the 8 mil on top.
Yeah.
And by the way, is that 4 mil? You're saying the distance between the points? Is that
Between
right?
each diode, yeah.
So the smaller the number, the more resolution. So
Exactly.
To speak.
Yeah.
What was the idea driving behind the different resolutions in the same?
We just like to be weird, I think. It made it a lot cheaper. And so that really helps, yeah. If it was all 4 mil, it's just more expensive. But I think that there was an attraction to the idea of this mixed resolution because we tried to stay away from looking like TV, but that project was the most TV-like one we've done, you know, the most series of rectangles. And so I think to break up the resolution made it feel a little different. And we thought we would design media that would really sort of work, that would have all this different strata. And we thought as well, that would help connect one screen with the next, which we really wanted to do instead of them being separate. So if you've got these 3 rows that continue, like continuous bands, we thought that would help connect it as well.
Those 3D cubes of LEDs that you talked about at the beginning?
Shanghai. Aha. I don't think the cubes that are hanging,
Yeah.
I don't think they're LED. Is this the Shanghai video?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
What are they? That's the question. What are they?
I think they were light boxes, those cubes. Is that right, Ian, do you think?
The interior was the light boxes, and the structure itself was acrylic LED tubes made from recycled CDs.
Are you talking about the whole building? Or the things
I'm
inside?
trying to find out what I'm talking about, yes.
Should we go back?
Can you say a little bit more about it, what it was and how it's built, why it's 3D, how that works?
Yeah, this guy, yeah. So they are, it's very low resolution again. So it's acrylic, well, I don't know if it is acrylic actually, because it was made from recycled CDs.
Whatever CDs.
Say again?
Whatever CDs.
Yeah, whatever CDs are made from is what Ian just said, which is the truth. And so they're like little tubes that are diffused but translucent. So you've got LED diodes inside them, and these tubes are coming out from the building like a little porcupine. And they've got like just a few LEDs in each of them that can be programmed. Like, so they make up planes, a series of planes in 3D space, and then they can be programmed individually. So you can have that sense of spatial color and shifting and shape moving around it.
Are those like voxels with transparency, or to get to the further ones that are further back, you see through some space where there's nothing there?
Yeah, this is exactly, I mean, it's negative space in between them. So, there's no other structure, there's no other sort of fabric to the building except for the support structure for the LEDs itself. So that's like a shell that sits on top of this guy, right? So this is what's inside, that's what's housed by that sort of porcupine of LED. Yeah.
So in the last few years, we've seen a lot of innovation in lighting and price going down as LEDs become more mainstream. Can you speculate based on technology that's coming out now? How do you think your work is going to look in 5 years? What type of technology do you think you're going to be able to use?
You know what I would love to be doing? Is doing something with natural light. I would be fascinated if someone could make a product that could somehow amplify natural light. I know I'm talking about mirrors and glass and lensing that has been around for centuries, but that would be fascinating if someone could work on that. Because I always feel, I mean, we do our best to be energy conscious, like we have in the one in San Francisco, there's like a low energy mode that you can really easily schedule, because in Northern California you have to do that, it's the law, you have to like go into, there are low energy days. Anyway, back to your question, that's what I would love. I would love to be working with the technology of lensing and mirrors and natural light in some way. In terms of electric stuff, I wonder what's going to happen with OLED. Like, I wonder if these flexible screens will be fun and if they will really kind of be successful and of a customizable scale. And just, would there be modular and scalable and stuff like that? Whether we'll be able to do something, in a much more crumpled paper way. That would be fun.
Yeah, cheap enough to cover a whole building.
Say again?
Cheap enough to cover a whole building.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I wonder. That might be amazing. With the right architect, that could be fascinating.
All right, one more question.
How do you recommend someone gets started in this field? This seems a little bit difficult if you don't have a lot of resources, funding, funders, like you said.
What would be your area of interest?
In terms of the conceptual design of it, and as a public artist.
Oh, as a public artist?
Yeah.
I would say, okay, well, I'll just draw from my own experience then. Like, if I think about it, how did I get the commission in Liverpool? I did it by making a project with my friends. And I applied for a very small little residency here in New York. That meant I could get some projectors. And then I asked my freelance clients, and they lent me green screens and cameras and more projectors. And I used to live in a big old block in Crown Heights, and I used my friends as the performers. And on a whim, I made this video installation. It was up for like one night, had a big party. But it looked like this enormous giant inside of that block. That made its way via the internet to the people in Liverpool, and they were basically saying, can you do something like this for us in our city? So the lesson there is be really nice to your freelance clients. They shall be nice to you. Be a nice person to work with. So I guess there was applying for little grants. There's having people who want to play with you, and inviting them to play, inviting them to have a goal and a project to have fun with and make with. But essentially, put something out there. If your portfolio doesn't have a thing in that you want to impress, to get employed by the people you want to employ, or impress the public art community you want to impress, then try and make that project. Because when I showed it, I never said, oh, by the way, you were on the roof and really drunk in this photo. Or this was up for one night. And I didn't lie either, but I would just show it. And I would say, so this is a video project I did in New York, which sounds impressive, right? And it looked cool. And there you go. And that really helped, actually. And that was when I was coming right out of school. So that helped me start on my public art field. And then the other thing I would say is subscribe to, there's a public art email list that you subscribe to that. It's through Americans for the Arts. And you see all of the RFQ listings, the request for qualifications. So they're all over the place all the time around this country. There are percent art programs. And this is the email list where you can find out about the opportunities to apply for them. And then when you do, I would say just make a really good proposal, because a lot of artists don't. A lot of artists, they're really scattered, and they'll fall through. And just make a nice, concise write-up, like show you've done a little bit of research, a nice visualization, and I bet you'll get shortlisted. So is that helpful? Yeah. And yeah. So that would be my recommendation for public art.
Can I piggyback on that question?
Yeah.
What was your graduate program? What was the technical?
I went to the ITP program at NYU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you can just represent us. Right? Is there anybody else from ITP?
No, their end of the year show is
I know, it's fine.
It's down now.
Yeah.
All right, Ed, thank you very much.